What is going on? It's Vince, and this is the RR Show. We've got a great show for you. Don't want to mess around. Want to get into it. We got r/TIFU. We've got r/IDontWorkHereLady. Last but not least, r/PettyRevenge. It's going to be fun because it's the RR Show, and it begins right now. The first story we got for you is, again, like I said, from r/TIFU, posted by user PangWangle15. TIFU by almost letting my wife and kids become a Dateline special. This happened a few years ago, but we were swapping travel stories with my brother and sister-in-law, and I realized that this might belong here. To set this up for you, my family and I are from Illinois. When we lived there, we went to northern Minnesota for vacation. We have since moved to Texas, but continue with our vacation tradition because even though there are closer and more luxurious vacation destinations in Texas, sometimes nostalgia wins out over common sense and crippling gas prices. After a successful vacation filled with mosquito bites and unsuccessful fishing, we were on our way back to the Lone Star State. Instead of driving straight back, we usually take a detour and visit some family we have in the middle of the state. Notes of importance to bring up. Family is roughly 4 hours south. I have 3 kids, all with tiny bladders. This trip, we had our newest addition, which was a 4-month-old puppy that also has a diminutive bladder. Of course, little over an hour or two before we arrive at our detour, the puppy starts sniffing around like he has to make some ground wet, so we realized that we needed to pull over. Northern Minnesota is where there are a ton of tiny lakes, and where we were at the time was basically long wooded roads with the occasional smattering of houses built around a lake. We found a little turnoff that was an arc that entered and exited on the same side of the road. Next to that was a brick wall that was maybe 3 feet tall. As good of a place as any at that point because it was probably half-hour drive to the nearest anything. So my wife pulls over, and my oldest son and I start walking the puppy around. Behind the wall, there was a set of stairs that led to a path that I assume led to a lake. So my son, my puppy, and I went down the stairs to the path because I thought it would be less distracting if he had some privacy. After a little while, he does his thing, and we start to head back. I get to the bottom of the stairs and hear my wife call my name and say that we're going to be late. Something was off in the tone of her voice, and it was the get there when you get there situation, so I knew something was off. I tell my son to hurry up. I get to the top of the stairs, and I see my wife staring at a man standing outside of a windowless white van, staring back at my wife, maybe 15 yards from our van. The second he saw me, he got right into his car and took off. I asked my wife what was going on and if she was okay. She said she was a little shaken, but all right. She said get in the car and she would explain. A few minutes after I went down the stairs, my middle child asked my wife for some help with something in the back seat. She got out and walked around to the passenger side and started to help him. A few seconds after that, she saw a car quickly pull in front of our car, and the driver looked back at her, pick up their cell phone, and drive away. The car was a crappy little sedan that, by her description, sounded like the car that gets you through high school and college. It seemed weird to her because it had been a while since we had seen another car. The speed at which they pulled up, then pulled out, and how they seemed like they were not trying to be noticed. It was weird. Shortly after that, the white van pulled up, and a man in seasonally inappropriate clothes got out and looked at my wife. He then opened the side door, and my wife could see the van was empty, and there was a cage-like structure separating the cargo from the driver's area. She froze and tried to figure out if she could get to her cell phone or if her best bet was to protect the kids. Side note, my wife is a badass. She once semi-thwarted a bank robber, but, I digress. She casually decided to call out for her husband to see if that might scare him off if he was looking for an easy target. After she told me what happened, we both agreed that the guy had anything from theft to abduction in his mind. Then we called the local non-emergency police and told them what transpired. Since no crime had been committed and we just had makes and models of cars, there wasn't much they could do. But they did urge us to email them an account of what happened, and we did that night. Maybe I'm paranoid, but I feel that we narrowly missed a whole lot of trouble. Do you think it was a real threat or two people with overactive imaginations? The next story we got for you is from r/IDontWorkHereLady from user Barry the Bar Stand. He doesn't work here, lady. This is definitely a he doesn't work here, not a I don't work here situation, as I upset the staff, not a customer. So background on me. I am tech savvy and know my stuff. And I'm in the market for a new laptop, but I'm planning to customize it for the best specs I can get. I can do all this online, but what you can't do there is get a feel for what you're buying. So I'm in my local big electronics store checking out different makes. While browsing, I overhear a woman looking to buy a new laptop for her 13-year-old daughter to help her with schoolwork. She has a budget, and the salesman is going through different specs while her bored little girl quietly loiters behind her. The guy helping her starts going on about how she needs different things and throwing performance figures out all over the place. He's pointlessly upselling her, in my opinion, but it's not really my business. This one's just a base model, so it'll struggle with some tasks, but we do have it with an upgraded processor, new out, and it'll definitely handle what you want. I'm thinking, well, she's only doing homework. She doesn't need that. The second HDMI port of this model gives it more flexibility. More flexibility for what? Plugging it into a second TV so you can see Wikipedia better? The better integrated graphics means you can get 120 frames per second compared to a normal 60 FPS, which is better for the eyes when you're sitting there for a long time. I'm sorry, what? By the time this sleaze had finished, the poor technophobic woman was looking at a €1,200 top-of-the-range laptop capable of going gaming and acting as a mobile media hug. Frankly, I'm surprised the guy didn't try telling her it would keep your coffee warm, too. It was more than the €700 budget she had said, and more than you need to spend on a 10-year-old to help her do homework. But that's no big problem. The guy can set her up on a buy now, pay later, and then monthly payments for an X amount of years at 19.7 APR. It's a steal, he swears. And with that, he goes off to the warehouse to get her the new purchase. And, well, let's make it my business. I can see the lady is unsure. She doesn't know what he's selling her, let alone that he's selling her more than she wants or needs. And I can see that the money was a bit of a concern for her. Sorry, excuse me, ma'am. I couldn't help but overhear you wanted a new laptop for your daughter, I said across the display. Oh, I'm okay. I'm being looked after. Thanks, she muttered with a weak smile. Yeah, I heard. I don't work here, but I wanted to say that I think he's screwing you, and you don't need what he's selling you. She looked puzzled and didn't say anything. I'm just browsing myself, but he's selling you a top-of-the-range media laptop. You said you just wanted it for your daughter for her homework. But with what he's getting you, well, it's massively overkill for what you want. Looking over to where the guy went, she said, "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am. Look, let me show you." And I went round to her side of the display, and I said, "I'm assuming you wanted for her to look things up online, read her essays, that sort of thing. I'm guessing you don't want it to plug into your TV and stream movies, and you're not planning on using it to make your own Pixar films or that she's going to be gaming for hours?" "No, none of that. Just schoolwork," she said. "Okay, then yeah, he's trying to rip you off. I'll show you what you want, what you actually need." And I walked her back down to the mid-tier spec devices. As I'm showing her, the guy comes back, new laptop in hand, and I see him stop out of the corner of my eye and slow up as he approaches. "Hi, I've got it here. Did you want me to follow up on the..." She looked at him and just said, "Oh, no, I'm okay. This young man is helping me right now," and turned back to me. The guy looks me up and down and just goes, "But he doesn't work here. He can't help you." I just looked at him and said, "It's no worries, dude. I've got the time," and it seemed like she needed some help, so she knows what she's buying. The guy stuttered and tried to cut in and asked again the lady to go to the checkout, and I just cut him off. And I said that he was good to go as we were just browsing and we'll shout at him if we need it. The guy walked off quickly and I saw him heading across to the checkouts where there were two managers. They were standing there talking. And I figured my business was going to be shortly unwelcome. So I quickly told the lady to take a photo of the laptop sales label with the details on it and said I'd write down a shop online where she could buy it for 20% off at the moment as they had a sale going on. As the lady said thank you and turned to leave with her daughter, the guy reappeared with one of those managers, and as he came down the aisle, I just covered the middle so the lady had a head start and didn't get collared by the sleaze again. And as I did, the manager said, "Excuse me, sir." I just turned and looked at them and said, "Oh, we're all good, thanks, just browsing. But as I told your colleague, I'll give you a shout if I need anything." And I slipped the earphones in that were hanging around my neck, put them back in, and took out my phone and hit play. Not trying to be cool about it, but just being a nuisance as I was still blocking the aisle. I don't know what laptop the lady ended up getting, and she may have gone back to that store for all I know, but I figured I did my good deed for the year that day. Our third and final story for this episode is coming from r/PettyRevenge, posted by user Chewy's Bro, the Jennifer Gambit, or how to weaponize Mariah Carey. Literally this time last year, we got a new neighbor. Older woman in her late 50s, Mrs. and I went over, introduced ourselves, you know the deal. She seemed nice enough and normal, or so we thought. We had friends over the following Friday evening. Food on the barbecue, grill for you northern heathens, drinks and music not too loud. Neighbors on the other side recently had a baby, so we didn't want to piss them off. Old Jennifer sticks her head over the fence. "Turn your music off, it's evil," amongst other stuff about alcohol, us not being married, and living in sin with a child out of wedlock. As Miss Carey is going on about what she wants for Christmas. So I wander over. I explain to her that she's being disrespectful, we're doing nothing wrong, yada yada yada. Our friends and my missus are almost wetting themselves at this point. One of these guys put Metallica on, which set her off even more. That's when I politely asked her to leave us alone. She backed off, went inside, and that was the end of it. For days later, we got death stares, pamphlets from her church to repent from our sins, etc. Sorry, love, that's not happening. Her campaign went on for another week or so. When I reached my limit, one of our friends was going to keep an eye on our place for a while we were visiting the missus's family for a couple of weeks, so I hatched a plan. Dug out a Wonder Boom portable speaker, grabbed an old phone, and loaded one single song onto it. The one I mentioned earlier, with a little experimentation of the placement of the speaker in a back room with the window open enough for it to be heard, but not loud enough to actually locate. All was ready to go. The night we left, I set it play on repeat. All my mate had to do was recharge the speaker every other day and press play. It wasn't the same time every day. So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.